Hello and welcome all students on today's presentation that is on bird migration. Okay, so moving to the first slide, we say the word migration. It has come from the Latin word migrare, which means going from one place to another. Okay, so many birds they have the inherent quality that is, they have the instinct that gives them the signal that they have to move from one place to another to obtain the advantages of the favorable conditions. You must have heard about the term migration in your earlier lectures also. So, the migration process is actually when the bird is migrating or it is traveling to a longer distance from their feeding and nesting places to their breeding and resting places. Okay, and this is a very important and interesting phenomenon that is observed in case of birds and other animals also. In birds, migration means two-way journey. That is the onward journey when they are going to a place from their home to the new places, and the back journey that is from the new places to their home. Okay, so migration is basically the to and fro movement of the bird from their home to new places, and when they are coming back from the new places to their home. Okay, so this movement this occurs during the particular period of the year, and the birds they usually follow the same route. There is a sort of internal biological clock that is present in all the birds. We all animals we have internal biological clock. Human beings also they have the internal biological clock. Whenever that clock is going to strike the animal or strike the person, it will give a type of signal and a stimulus to that person that it should initiate or it should start the process of what migration. And this internal biological clock is going to regulate this particular phenomenon. Okay, as we also we have the biological clock. So whenever in the morning the sun rises, our body gets a signal that we have to wake up, and whenever there is the night time, the body starts saying, it gives the signal to the body that we should go to sleep. Okay, so there exists a biological clock in every individual, in every animal, that is going to give the signal to that animal that the particular function of the body should be initiated. Okay, so by definition, when we uh, when we describe a particular phenomena, when we are going to give emphasis to a particular phenomena, we must have a particular type of definition. Okay, so according to L. Thomas, he was a scientist in the year 1926. He described the phenomena of bird migration, and he emphasized this particular phenomena in the form of a definition, and he described it as changes of habitat, particularly recurring and alternating in direction, which tend to secure optimum environmental conditions at all times. So please emphasize upon the definition what the author is trying to say. He is saying that changes in habitat, when the bird is going to migrate, when the animal is going to move from their home to new places, definitely the changes in the habitat will occur, and alternating in direction. That means the process of their movement will be in to and fro manner, which tend to secure optimum environmental conditions. Okay, optimal environmental conditions is emphasizing that the animal, when it is going to migrate, the conditions in the home were not favorable, that gave an instinct, gave a stimulus to the animal that they should migrate, they should go to a particular place where the environmental conditions are favorable for them to live during the extreme times. Okay, and this will be a to and fro movement. Is it clear to you? Is the definition clear to you all? Okay. And this is said that it is a periodical movement. That means in every part, in every year, this phenomena will be practiced without fail. If the bird has the habit of migrating, it will migrate. It will start its journey at a particular time, at a particular period of the year, and it will go back to the same place during a particular duration. Okay, so bird migration is more or less regular, extensive. That means they will travel a long distance and they will migrate to broader aspects of the continent and the movements between their breeding regions and their wintering regions. Okay, so breeding regions are basically the regions that are the hometowns, and wintering regions they will migrate for feeding and resting purpose. In the breeding regions, they will carry out their breeding and nesting purposes. Okay, so this migration will be followed up in a to and fro manner. Then we come up to the next topic, that is the type of bird migration. And all birds, they do not migrate. Okay, so there are certain species that are present on the earth, that are present in the world, that are subject to periodical movements of varying extent. That means the distance that will be covered by these birds will be of uh, varying sizes. That means few of them will be migrating to few kilometers, but others they might migrate to up to thousands and thousands of kilometers. Okay. Then the birds which live in northern part of the hemisphere have greatest migratory power. Okay. So talking about the migration could be what? Latitudinal according to the latitudes. They could be longitudinal according to the longitudes, could be altitudinal or vertical. They could be partial, they could be total, they could be vagrant or irregular, they could be seasonal, they could be diurnal, and they could be nocturnal. So when we classify the migration types, they are basically of 9 types, and we will be discussing them one by one in our coming slides. Okay. So first of all, we are coming to the latitudinal migration, and the latitudinal migration, which it usually means that the movement from north to south and vice versa. Okay, that means the migration will be according to the latitude. Okay, so many birds live in the land masses of the northern temperate and subarctic zones where they get facilities for nesting and feeding during their summer period. That means the northern temperate regions are their what? Homing grounds. And they are going to move towards the south during the winter, and the south region will be their resting and their breeding grounds. Okay. An opposite but lesser movement also occurs in southern hemisphere, and that means the southern hemisphere, the birds migrating from the southern hemisphere, they will be traveling, they will be traversing a very short distance when the season are changed. This will be what? Seasonal migration. The example is what? Cuckoo that breeds in India and spends the summer at southeast of Africa and thus covers a distance of about 7,250 kilometers. Okay, so in terms of the migration, if we are taking this much amount of distance, it will be called as a shorter distance because there are certain species on this earth which migrates to thousands and thousands of kilometers. Okay, so this distance will be considered as a shorter span. Okay, then moving to the next type will be what? The longitudinal migration. And as the term is going to say, longitudinal will occur according to the longitude. Okay. So the longitudinal migration occurs when the birds migrate from east to west direction and vice versa. The common example of this type of longitudinal migration will be of what? Starlings. Common name is Turnus vulgaris, that is a resident of East Europe, and West Asia, that is going to migrate towards the Atlantic coast. Okay. The second one is what the California gulls. It is a resident and it is going to breed in Utah, but this species will be migrating westward to winter in the Pacific coast. Okay, so when the bird it is going to follow up the longitudinal process, that means it will be migrating from east to west or west to east. It will be termed as what? Longitudinal migration. Okay, then the third one is what? The altitudinal migration. So the altitude migration will occur in mountainous regions according to the altitude. As we have seen that there are mountains where the variation occurs in the altitude. Okay, so the altitude will be from the peak to the bottom or from the bottom to the peak. Okay, so there are certain birds that inhabit the mountain peaks, but they will migrate to lowlands during the winters because during the winters, what is going to happen? Can anyone tell me? Why will this altitudinal migration be followed up by certain birds? Any one of you? You can respond. Hello? Yes, Jam, you are typing something? Yes, Jam, you are right. The reason is during the winters, what is going to happen? The peaks of the mountains will be covered up by snow, and the conditions will be very harsh for the birds that will be living in the peaks. So due to the ice cover, due to the snow, due to the wind conditions and poor temperature conditions, the birds they will not be able to find food for them, and the nesting places will be also covered up by snow. So this will be the reason for the birds from which will give the signal to the birds that they should migrate to the lowlands where the conditions are favorable for them to live and they can cope up with the extreme climatic conditions. Okay, so the best example for the altitudinal migration is what golden plover. Its scientific name is fluvialis. That starts from Arctic tundra and goes up to the plains of Argentina, covering a distance of 11,250 kilometers. And this bird is going to migrate either in flocks or in pairs. Okay, so here I will be showing you one video of bird migration, which will emphasize, which will clear, and which will throw focus upon the process of the migration of the birds, how they are going to travel such larger distances in flocks, and that will be helpful for you to see, and you can imagine what kind of migration exactly happens. Okay. So this video will show you the migration in flocks. So you must have seen the video and you have seen that the migration of birds, it is carried up in case of or certain birds, and this is done in flocks. So can anyone tell me why this is done in case of flocks and why do birds they show this type of formation when they are migrating? Any one of you? There must exist some reason for making them this kind of formation during the process of migration. Yes, Ria, it is for safety. That is, they have to ward off all the predators that come en route to them when these birds are traveling this much of distance. So to keep away the predators, they have to follow up this kind of pattern and they have to be migrating always in case of flocks. Okay. So the next type is what we were discussing about the partial migration, and this kind of migration is done when all the members of a group of birds do not take part in migration. Okay, only a few members will follow up the migration, and the several members of a group they take part in the migration. And this is a common example of what blue jays of Canada and northern part of United States that travel southwards to blend with the sedentary populations of southern states of USA. Another example is that of country may be an example of partial migration. Okay, so coots is these are the birds that look like the crow. Okay, and they are what birds that live alongside the waters, and during the rainy months, what they do, they dip their body inside the water and they just keep their heads out, and they will go along with the river stream and they will catch upon fishes, and by that movement certain coots they follow up the partial migration that will they will be migrating alongside the river to certain distances in search of what food. Okay, then next type comes up, that is called as what? Total migration. When all the members of the species they take part in the migration, that is called as what? Total migration. In case of partial migration, some of the members will be left at their native places. They will not be migrating, but in total migration, all of them will be taking part. Okay. Then the next type is what? Vagrant or irregular migration. When some of the birds they disperse to a short or long distance for safety and food, this is called as what? Vagrant or irregular migration. Okay. Have you heard about herons? These are certain species of birds. The common example is what? The pond herons. Okay. So herons may be the example of vagrant or irregular migration. That means they will be dispersing them for a short distance. They will be going to alongside certain distances and they will be coming back. Okay. The other examples are of what? Black stork called as Ciconia nigra, glossy ibis that is Pleiades falcinelis, spotted eagle Aquila clanger, and bee eater that is Merops apiaster. Okay, so these are the certain examples of birds that do vagrant or irregular migration. In this type, the migratory route will not be common. They will go here and there. The migratory distance will not be set upon. That will be not uniform, and that is why it is called as what? Irregular type of migration. The next type is what? Daily migration. You must have seen some birds. They make their daily journey from their nests by the influence of the environmental characters, and these characters, such as the temperature, light, and humidity, will help them and will guide them to take on their daily journey and their daily migration. Okay, examples are what? Crows, herons, and starlings. So you must have seen during the morning there are certain species of birds that go to a certain distance, they fly up in the sky, and during the evening they come back to their nests. And this phenomena of daily migration is carried up for basically feeding purposes. Okay. Then the eighth type is what? The seasonal migration that happens to be set upon in the birds in terms of what? Season. Okay. So some birds they migrate at different seasons of the year in search of food for or for breeding, that is called as what? Seasonal migration. The examples are what? Of cuckoos, swifts, swallows, etc. Okay. So these birds, what they generally do, they migrate from south to north during summer, and these birds are called as what? Summer visitors. Okay. Again, there are certain birds like what? Snow bunting, redwing, shortlock, grey plover, etc., which migrate from north to south during the winters. Okay. So they will be termed as what? Winter visitors. Okay. So this is the basic difference between the summer visitors and the winter visitors. When they will be adding up to the resident birds during the winter, they will be called as what? Winter visitors. And certain species of birds, they will be adding up to the summer natives, they will be called as what? Summer visitors. Okay. Then the another type is what? Nocturnal and diurnal. Okay. So diurnal, this term is familiar with you all, that many larger birds like crows, robins, swallows, hawks, jays, bluebirds, pelicans, cranes, geese, etc., they migrate during daytime for food. And these birds they are called as what? Diurnal birds, and they generally migrate in flocks. Another type is what? Nocturnal birds. They travel during the night time. For example, some small sized birds of passerine groups like sparrows, warblers, etc., they migrate in darkness. They are called as what? Nocturnal birds. And the darkness of night is going to give protection to them from their enemies. Okay, so this phenomena is practiced so that the predator it does not gets any signal that the bird is going to travel to a distance and it will be protected. That is why these birds are called as what? Nocturnal migratory birds. Then, after discussing about the types of migration, we have to discuss upon what are the basic causes of migration. That means, why is there a need for a bird to travel such larger distances and the reason to leave their homes and go to a new place? Okay, so the causes of migration could be many, and we will be discussing each one of them one by one. So, the causes of migration, these are certain problems that are related to migration. So, first of the we what? Instinct and gonadal changes. Okay, that is happening inside the body of the bird. Okay, so it is widely accepted that the impulse, that the signal to migrate in birds is possibly instinctive. That means it is inherent, it comes automatically, and the migration towards the breeding grounds is associated with what? Gonadal changes. That means the hormones that are released by the gonads of a bird is going to give the signal to the brain that the bird should start migrating, that the bird should prepare itself for certain changes, and these changes will lead them to travel different different, you can say different places. Okay. Then the second reason could be what? Of scarcity of food and the day length. Okay. The examples are scarcity of food, shortening of day length. When the daylight is going to shorten, that means the daylight is going to shorten in case of winters. There will be less sunshine, less availability of food, and the increase of cold conditions. These are believed to stimulate the process of what? Migration. So migration in birds depends upon two important factors, that is the stimulus that will be coming from inside the bird's body, that by means of hormones secreted by the gonad, and the second one will be the guidance. The guidance will be coming from the environmental conditions. Okay, so these two will be acting upon together, and this will help upon the bird to start the process of migration. Then the scarcity of food and fall of daylight are believed to produce the endocrinal changes, and this will help upon the process of initiating bird migration. Okay. Then the third reason is what? Photoperiodism. Okay. So this term basically means the increase of day length that includes that is going to induce bird migration. The day length is going to affect the pituitary gland and the pineal gland, and these are going to cause growth of gonads, which are going to secrete the sex hormones that are going to act upon as what? Stimulus for migration. Okay, so this happens in case of many of the Indian birds, for example, the Siberian cranes, geese, swan, those come from the Central Asia. Himalayas begin to return from March onwards with the increase of the day length. Okay, so what happens? These birds, they migrate, they travel certain distances, and these birds, they will be coming to Central Asia from the Himalayas. When there are extreme cold conditions in the Himalayas, the peaks are ice capped, and there is snow everywhere. There is scarcity of food, and day length, it shortens the migration. Again, summer is seasonal variation. That is another important factor that is going to influence the bird. Okay, so the north to south migrations of birds take place under stimulus from the internal conditions of the gonads, which are affected by the seasonal variation. Okay, so whenever there is a change in the season, the bird will start migrating. The bird will prepare itself to carry up the process of migration and will move up from their home, from their native places to the new places to venture about. Then the last factor is what? Light. As I have said, light plays an important role in the development of gonads, which have direct role on migration. So if the gonads, they undergo regression, that means the activity is suppressed. The urge for migration is not felt. But when the gonads, they have started secreting many of the hormones, the bird will feel that it should start the process of migration. So the seasonal change in illumination appear to be a crucial factor for determining the process of migration. Okay. Then there are certain guiding mechanisms in bird navigation. You must be thinking upon that what is going to navigate, what is going to guide these birds that they are able to travel to such larger distances, and in every season and in every part of the year they reach to a certain destination without failure and without getting distracted. That means they are guided upon, they are getting the navigation, they are getting the signals, they are getting the direction due to certain conditions. Okay. For more than a century, the celestial navigations, that means the celestial bodies, that are present in our universe, they have fascinated the ornithologists. So ornithologists are people who study about the birds. So different explanations have been given by these ornithologists that how the birds they are going to navigate. Okay, so there is no radar system. They do not have any GPS in them, but they travel to certain places every part of the year. So it is difficult to generalize on the means of orientation and navigation in migration. And the different groups of birds with different modes of existence have evolved different means of finding their way from one place to another. Okay, so we'll be discussing these ways one by one. The other reasons will be what fat deposition. Okay, this is another important aspect for the process of migration, but this happens to be a reason in only few birds. Okay, so that is the reason I have not discussed them in previous slides. So the fat deposition in certain migratory birds, they what happens? They become greedy, and the fat is deposited in the subcutaneous region of the body. What will happen just before the process of migration? They will eat up. They will keep on eating, and what will happen? There is large amount of fat that will be deposited in the body. So this fat deposition will be playing an important role in the migration of birds, and these migrate a long distance, and this fat is going to act upon an energy resource. That means the reserve enough fat which provide energy in their arduous journey and helps the bird to reach its destination following a particular route. Because during the journey, they are not going to stop anywhere. They will not uh, they will not come to the earth's surface and eat upon anything. Once they start, they will reach their destination, and only after that they will be eating anything. So this requires a larger amount of energy when they are traveling to such larger distances, and for that they will deposit fat in their body. Okay, so what happens after fat deposition? Restlessness, that is seen in many of the birds, that will help that bird in the process of migration. Okay, the next one is inherited instinct, that is inherit, inherited from the parents. So birds that take part in migration or follow a more or less definite goal evidently possess an inherited instinct. Okay, so both the direction and the goal, they must have been implanted in the bird's genetic code when a population can adjust to a particular location or environment. Okay, I hope this is clear. You have any questions, you can ask. Any queries regarding this slide? Okay, so I'll move ahead. What happens in every family? We have an elderly person, and he is called as the experienced one. That is that will be giving suggestions, that will be guiding each one of us, that what process should be followed. Just like that, the experienced birds, they will always lead the flock. The reason is that these experienced birds, they will be giving direction. They will be helping upon the younger ones. They will be giving protection to the younger ones and the females of the flock. And this happens in case of every species. Okay. So the theory is sometimes advanced that old and experienced birds lead the way, and thereby they lead the whole route and show the whole route to the younger generation. Okay. So the reason behind this will be what? So case, in certain cases, if the uh, you can say if the older ones they die in the next year, what will happen? The younger ones they will remember the route, they will remember the direction, and they will follow up the entire flock when they come migrate to that place in the coming year. Okay, so this theory may be applicable to some birds like swans, geese, cranes, because they fly in flocks, but not applicable in all species where old and young ones they migrate at different times, and mainly the young ones they are starting ahead of the adult. Okay, again there are theories that that regards the phenomenon of migration of birds. And these theories, they are proposed by the ornithologists that help upon giving the idea that birds are guided by a number of agencies. Okay, so these guiding forces are basically of different types. So the first one is what the Earth's magnetic field that will help upon that will act as a guiding factor. Okay, so some ornithologists believe that the existence of a magnetic sense is an important factor in the power of geographical orientation. He suggested that birds are sensitive and guided by the Earth's magnetic field. You must all be knowing that there exists a magnetic field in the Earth, and this will help upon in the migratory process of certain of the species. Then the second one will be what? Sun. Okay, so the sun, it will be acting as a guiding agent in diurnal migration. So can anyone tell me what is diurnal migration? I have explained it in the earlier slide. Yes, Priya. Migration in the daytime. So when it's morning time, the bird will and it will the nest and it will go to the places where there is enough of food in search of what food the bird is going to migrate, and it will come back in the evening to the nesting places. Okay, so the sun will be acting upon as a guiding agent. The birds will be guided by the position of the sun. When the sun is in the east, the signal goes to the brain of the bird that it is the morning time. But when the sun is in the west, the signal will again go and it will initiate and it will give stimulus to the bird that it should go back to the nest. Okay, so the birds are guided by the position of the sun. They have shown by intense experimentations those homing pigeons and many wild birds they use the sun as a compass, and that will be possessing a time sense or internal clock which allows them to take account of motion of the sun across the sky. And if the sky remains overcast, they become bewildered and fail to orient themselves. But still, they will be coming back to the nesting places during the evening time. Okay. Then the stars. These are the celestial bodies and they will help upon those species that migrate during the night time. Okay. So the guiding agent for nocturnal migration. And this happens in case of what warblers and many other birds that orient themselves during navigation by the sun during daytime. But the warblers, they and many other birds, they navigate mainly during the night. So what happens when the illumination was better? The planetarium sky matched with the natural light, and the birds they followed up the proper direction. Okay, so according to the position of the star, they will be able to locate exactly in which direction they are migrating and they are traveling. Okay, then the compass or the internal clock that exists in the bird's body, it is commonly seen in case of some of the species that millions of birds they fly to their winter home in every autumn, and by doing so what is going to happen, they cover often thousands of kilometers from their native home, and in the following spring they again return to their breeding grounds. So this is a regular biological phenomena in the avian life, and every bird it is going to follow up the this course. So it is established that the young birds they caught during the migration, when released afterwards, followed the same original route the undisturbed fellows followed. So this phenomena suggested that the presence of a sort of compass it is used by many of the birds during navigation process, and this will help upon in traveling them and in the migratory process. The there are certain disadvantages of the bird migration also. So these disadvantages could be only a few. So the first one is what? Many youngs they are not able to reach the destination because they die during the course of the continuous and tiresome journey. Okay. Then the second disadvantage could be there are sudden changes in the climate, such as there could be storms, there could be hurricanes in their route. So these strong current of wind, fog, etc., they cause what? Death of the sizable number of migrants. Okay. The third disadvantages could be man-made, such as high towers and lighthouses. They will act as an obstacle to in the route of the birds, and that will lead to the death of migratory birds. And lastly, man themselves are responsible for the death of migrants. What will happen? We shoot at times when we know that the flocks are migrating. We will shoot at these birds, and this is done for their own leisure and for the amusement purpose. Okay, so this was all about the migration process, the types of migration, the disadvantages, the orientation. Do you people have any query regarding any of the slide? You can ask. Any query, any question, any one of you might ask. No queries? All right. So I am ending the session here. Thank you, class.